Disclaimer. This is not a how-to, this is not a guide, nor is there a specific guideline for this topic. But this is my own guideline, my own opinion, and my own experiences with this lovely discussion topic. This is also going to be under viewer discretion, since some of the topics have a bit of a trigger warning, some have offensive language, and whatnot. Some of this rant is scripted, while I left some of it up to improv. You guys have been warned. Oh boy, the topic for today. Roleplay. What is roleplay? Well, thanks to Google, roleplay is to act out or perform the part of a person or a character. Or, for example, as a technique in training or psychotherapy. Or to participate in a role-playing game. This is usually seen online, in forums, gaming, tabletop games such as Dungeons & Dragons. I love that game, by the way. Or what my friends prefer to play, main RPG. Oh boy, my experiences with roleplay. It's kind of one of those things where a bunch of people do it, some people don't do it, some people refuse to do it, some people don't even know what it is. That kind of situation. Anywho, I've RP'd with many topics, many fandom OCs, ideas, ideals, that sort of thing. And I have to say most of these things were because most of the people who've spent their time on For Affinity, DA as a teenager like I have, these things, we're a bit used to seeing this. But as of recently, with more ideas, more OCs, groups, inspiration, not to mention an easier way of organizing RPs thanks to Discord. Bless you, Discord. Roleplay is one of those topics that keeps coming back to me. Not to mention, as a person who usually has spare time in between schoolwork and social media, and my non-existent social life, yeah, I can English, RP is one of those stable things that keeps me a bit busy on the down low. And during these times, I have to say I've had my fair share of good experiences and bad experiences. And some of my good experiences are mostly with friends, on servers, etc., where characters can do whatever, have whatever, blah blah blah, all in good fun, having squads, love, enemy, adventure, drama, even horror, and more. RP with friends is usually my most, fun, given the fact they're my friends. I know their characters very well, they know my characters very well, and things go on, and, chemistry is made, whether it's a romantic chemistry, a friendship, that sort of thing. And, okay, I'm just gonna make this clear. Most roleplay people make it out to be it's all about the sex. I'll get to that later. But right now, usually RP is just about the story to me. And personally, when it has a good story, I enjoy a good story, as much as anyone else would. Anywho, some of the other good experiences I've had were in some groups that I would find on DA. I would put in an application, and boom, they're like, oh hey, you're cool, we'll add you into the Discord server, or wherever we all chat and discuss things in RP. Though, most of these groups tend to either die off, or one person makes it horrible for everyone. Which kind of leads me into my bad experiences. I've had many bad experiences with roleplay. Whether it was with an ex of mine, a former friend of mine, and some stranger off of DeviantArt. To start it off, I like to explain I hate god modding and people trying to take care of controlling other people's characters. So, one of these things that leads into this is what happened with my ex. And I'm not saying a specific name, just saying I don't want people bandwagoning and doing that thing. That is bad, don't do it. But with my ex, we had our characters shipped when I was younger, and this was when I was young and stupid, given the fact, A, Sonic character, which I know not all characters are bad, but at the time my Sonic character was kind of Mary Sue-ish. I think she was. And I let him borrow a character of mine that I originally had shipped with my character, before I thought, hey, it's a good idea to ship my character with Silver. What was I thinking? Anywho, our characters were shipped and they had really good chemistry because, well, the one character was more of a standalone fighter character, while the other character was a hitman for hire, who worked kind of for the government. It was a long story, but their chemistry actually worked out well because their personalities clashed in good ways and bad ways. So what had ended up happening? Well, afterwards, he didn't really give my OC back. More so, he killed him off in his own continuation of my character. It was kind of weird, but at the same time, he literally stood there being like, oh, by the way, the character committed suicide. Bye! The fuck? Anywho, I don't understand how people can kill off someone else's character and feel good about themselves afterward. I'm not saying he did, and I'm not saying he didn't. I just don't know afterward. I had to block him. But it's one of those things where it's just like, sometimes bad experiences can scare you away from roleplay, and that's one of the things that scared me away from it for a good while, until I came into, good roleplays. Moving on, I had another bad experience with a former friend. And as I'm just going to say, there's going to be some trigger warnings in this little story, so cut to whenever if you don't want to hear the trigger. Anywho, I had roleplays going on with my one friend, and we would RP, I believe every character we liked from Pokemon or a series we liked, and we would RP that character. Personally, I found it more fun RPing as certain characters, but, we RP'd whatever ship we liked, and thought, hey, since we planned it out, it's a good idea. Well, most of those RPs led to things that I don't like mentioning, but they usually ended up in weird sexual situations where it normally led into something I didn't prefer role-playing, and I told him it was getting stale and boring. Also that I didn't prefer it. Anywho, as soon as I stated this, he was just like, kind of offended in a way? And the word I'm looking for is he kind of, as he said, was kind of offended, and then at the same time, he's just like, well, we could try something different. If you want to, we can try a rape roleplay. Who in the right mind would say something like that? Not to mention, I'm a huge fan of Law & Order Special Victims Unit. If you guys don't know what that series is, I'd recommend checking it out if you're into crime shows. Yeah. Anywho, Law & Order Special Victims Unit is about the Special Victims Unit, aka child abuse, rape, neglect, the stuff that people really don't like talking about. And it brought light to a lot of things that have been happening in people's lives. While at the same time I realized, oh hey, this is a bad no-no thanks to popular subcultures, it made me really uncomfortable that someone would even suggest this. And personally, if you have things that you would want to discuss with someone, I would recommend talking to a counselor or something if something bad like this has happened in your lifetime. Don't roleplay it to understand it. In layman's terms, this is a bad no-no, and never do something like this under any circumstance. In result, I got scared from roleplay again. One of the things I loved for a while, what do you know, getting thrown back out of it because of one little thing. And at the time I was young, so something like that was pretty scary. Now I kind of realize there's a little more freaky people on the internet that are into these other things, and personally I'm not kink-shaming, but if there's something with rape, I personally find it offending if you would rape roleplay and you never know if you're RPing with someone who was a rape victim. Personally, it's just one of those things where I hate discussing it. But what do you know? This was probably one of the worst experiences I've had with roleplay. But then we also have people like, I'm not mentioning names, who like to, what's the word I'm looking for? Make the perfect male character, but have a soulless husk of a female character so you can go off and have lewd roleplays. I'm not saying lewd roleplays aren't bad. As long as you're over the age and you're both consenting adults and blah blah blah, it's okay as long as you plan it out. And even if the characters don't have chemistry, as long as you're friends and whatnot, and if you're having fun and they're having fun, whoop-de-doo. It's not my point to be like, oh, sex is bad, you shouldn't do this, get the holy water. But hey, my experience, I've had this person interrupting roleplays, disrespecting mods, a bunch of other things, and upon all else, his characters were flatter than paper. No joke. He would have this character who's a millionaire. He gets all the ladies, that's it. Okay. He also made a note of what their penis size was. Thanks, we really needed to know that. Anywho, in every roleplay I've seen this guy, because he joined many of my groups that I would make, his characters would always be fawning or flaunting over, oh, I want a new man, or I want a new woman in my life. I need this. I need a relationship. Look, you don't need a relationship to make sure that, a roleplay is going to go well. Roleplay is, again, about the story or about the fun interactions you have with it. And if you have to have a relationship to have fun, you're probably looking in all the wrong places, dude. Anywho, moving on, I want to share some of my own personal guidelines. Kind of the do's and don'ts on my part. But, some of the do's beforehand is, well, make sure to plan. Make sure you're always prepared and do your homework on the other person's character. My thing is, you shouldn't really say that, oh, you're RPing your character wrong. But at the same time, remember, if the character's supposed to be a certain personality and you wanted that personality in the character, feel free to talk to the person. Say, if this character does this, ask questions, and this leads into my next topic, communicate. Communication is key in any roleplay. If you're talking to someone, you want to plan out ideas. Don't just throw yourself in there. Though, in many other roleplay games, you are thrown in there. You're thrown into the immersive environment. For example, Pokemon is technically a role-playing game because you're thrown into the shoes of a Pokemon trainer who just got their Pokemon. You're thrown into the world and, what do you know? Pokemon. Another thing is, in other games such as Dungeons & Dragons or even Made RPG, one of the simplest forms of a tabletop RPG, these games are normally meant to be immersive. You have to have the environment you're thrown into, and you're given a character that's randomly generated by your own roles. Afterwards, you're the one to invent the story, invent how the character looks, etc., etc. and how you want to even portray this character. Though, I'm just gonna say this, remember your own character's fine details. Don't just remember the other person's character. As this next topic, if you remember your character's fine details, the story, how they look, how they would act, you basically put your shoes, or put on their shoes for a day. When you put on their shoes for a day, you're put into the portrayal of this character. And when you are put into the portrayal of this character, you want to act out the character as accurately as possible. Though, there are many exceptions. Some people like when characters go a little out of character. There are always foil characters, there's always characters that just do everything. I'm not saying that's bad, and I'm not saying Mary Sue, Gary Stu, we're not getting into this topic. But if you have a character that's literally dull and boring, I would rather RP with a Mary Sue or Gary Stu. At least they know how to have fun and describe something. Though, as much as I hate to say this, it's true. I'd rather deal with a character that has a little more detail than a character that's trying so hard not to be another character that it's dull and boring. Though, it all depends. It's also dependent on the preference of you and your partner. If you guys, what's the word I'm looking for? If you guys plan beforehand, and you guys are wanting to have fun and do all of this, these fine details are what's important to you two. It's all up to your preferences. And make sure you and your roleplay partner, if you both are comfortable with doing whatever, then you guys go forward, do whatever. It takes inspiration and writing skills when it comes to roleplay, and feel free to expand on that. Now here's the part where we get into a little bit of the not safe for work part. You can skip this if you want, but this is always usually a topic with roleplays, and that is the sexual part of roleplay. If it's immersive in the story, or if it's just a lewd roleplay to lewd roleplay, either way, make sure the cutie is over 18 before touching the booty. Personally, if you guys are young and stupid, I can understand those mistakes. I've been there. And at the same time, it's always been with people my age, so, Anywho, you always want to make sure that they're above legal age to make sure, no legal issues. By state law, you can't even engage in these activities with a person that's under the age of consent or under. Thanks, English, I can speak it. Anywho, you can't engage in these activities with people who are under the age because obvious reasons. They don't have the mental maturity to consent to something like this. Even if you're not engaging in actual sexual activity, it's still illegal. And don't do it. Anywho, you always want to make sure to ask before you do these sexual role plays. Don't just go up and slap their booty. That's kind of creepy. The reason I say this is because there's many RPs that people are strictly not safe for work, lewd, etc., etc. I've seen this on Twitter, and I'm actually friends with a couple of them, and they're really cool people. And all because they do sexual roleplays does not mean that they're a bad person. I mean, in any movie or TV show nowadays, there's still a hint of sex somewhere. And as people say, and what I've seen in my social science courses, sex sells. But down onto the don'ts side of the roleplay thing, or my personal don'ts. Don't be rude, a dick, etc. Nobody likes someone who disrespects someone in a roleplay. And one of those things is usually you have the really lackluster roleplays, or you have the people who are too elitist and they're kind of a dick. I've encountered many, and no one really likes it. It breaks the mood, and it breaks the muse, as they like to say, a muse or responses, or it breaks everything up and cracks the flow. Is that the word I want to use for that? I guess? Not sure. It breaks the flow of things, and it kind of annoys me. When we see many people who roleplay, you always see those people who are just like, oh, if your responses are less than 3 sentences, I refuse to reply to you. Or you got those people who are just sitting there in script roleplay being like, haha, pokes you. Okay? I can understand if some language barriers are there. I've roleplayed with people from, France and other countries that have different languages, and of course English isn't going to be their first response. So, when these barriers are, put aside, if they don't word things in a way, maybe sometimes it's because they're using a translator or whatnot, that's sometimes acceptable, but I can't judge if it's on their part. If it's on their part, that's one of those things where it's just like, hey, you chose to roleplay with this person, this is their native language, English is not their native language, boom. As for the elitists, I have to say, I have met so many elitists. They don't RP fandoms, they don't RP anything that's outside of their elite zone. Personally, I RP'd many things, and I've never really had a problem with RPing anything. I mean, personally, I don't like RPing a fandom I don't know, and I won't because I would feel bad for the other person because they're gonna be like, they don't know a thing about this. Why am I role-playing with them? And I'd feel bad because I would lack muse and they wouldn't. Speaking of, One of the things that bugs me in a roleplay, as I said before, is forcing things. Don't force a roleplay or a ship. Don't control someone else's character, and don't do this without permission or, no god modding, is what they like to say. I know I'm rambling at this point, but, when you're wording things like this, and when you're RPing another character, for example, if you're role-playing Goku, yeah, you're gonna be a powerful character, but there's still his flaws. There's still a lot of things to touch up on. But as a character you've made on your own to be a balanced character, and then you go off and you're like, I can destroy the world. Sure, if you guys are having a funny crack roleplay, that's one thing. But god modding an actual roleplay with someone who's serious about roleplaying with you, it breaks Muse. I know I keep using Muse a lot, but that's the only way to describe it. Your Muse is who you roleplay. Just saying. I probably should have said this earlier. Anywho, god modding is one of those things where if you control someone else's character, what's the point of roleplaying with someone? It's like you're playing with their doll, and you just steal it away like a little toddler. I've encountered many of these on Twitter and whatnot, where a bunch of, what's the word I'm looking for? Dragon Ball Z roleplayers? Not all of them are bad, but most of them like to control other people's characters because kami ha. Anywho, one of the things that also irritates me is abandoning roleplays without telling anyone or having a proper excuse. I don't know if this is just me, but I feel like I did something wrong if someone doesn't tell me what's going on or they just leave and go to RP with someone else. But I understand when things get busy, because a lot of my friends are in college. A lot of my friends are in their last year of high school. Things are going to be busy. And when you have a life, you can't really judge someone. And if you judge someone for having this time, or having a time where they can't roleplay, it's kind of rude. While at the same time, you can't exactly leave someone's RP because they're going to be left feeling empty, not knowing what they did wrong. And it's kind of guilt and anxiety that builds onto things, and it's kind of why people lose Muse to roleplaying to begin with. Alrighty. My own don'ts aside, one of the things that I've seen so many times, another thing about lewd roleplays, is people publicly lewd roleplay. Now, if you tag it as not safe for work, if you're on Twitter or a website that can actually filter something like that, I guess it's okay as long as you're over the age. But if you're on DeviantArt, it breaks terms of service. A bunch of other sites with forums and whatnot, this all breaks terms of service. So that's kind of a bad thing to do publicly. If you were going to do something like that, make sure it's personal. Even then, make sure you're above the age to do this kind of roleplay. Which goes into my last topic, don't lewd underage characters. Stressed enough. It's bad enough people make the RP community look bad because this one dude decides to ORP with the young girl. I've seen this before, where a 19-year-old guy RP'd with a 13-year-old because the character was over 18. Make sure who you're RPing with, the actual person, is above the age. It's kind of a huge thing, and I can't stress this enough. Anywho, this is my own little discussion on RP and whatnot, and I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I might do more videos like this often. While at the same time, I'm gonna try my best to upload often, but who knows? I'm just going off of my own personal knowledge, and I really don't want to get back into the ranting community after the mess. Oh, the big mess. Personally, I just want to do discussion videos kind of like this, but that's all I can really say for now. I hope you guys enjoyed, and hey, if you guys enjoyed it, I hope you watch more of my content. See you guys later.